స్టార్ట్ చేద్దామా మ్యామ్?
అంటే వెయిట్ చేస్తున్నారా, ఇంకెవరైనా రావాలా?
ఐ థింక్ ఒకళ్ళు వచ్చారు, ఒక జాయిన్ అవుతారు అనుకుంటాను.
వెయిట్ చేద్దామా?
మీరు ఓకేనా? స్టార్ట్ అవుతా?
అలా కాదమ్మా, వెయిట్ చేద్దాం అంటే వెయిట్ చేద్దాం, కాకపోతే మీకు షెడ్యూల్ ఉంది కదా, మళ్ళీ మిగిలిన స్పీకర్స్ కూడా ఫినిష్ దేర్ ప్రెజెంటేషన్.
We'll start first. I'll introduce. Thank you, Vanaja ma'am, for joining us. Just to quickly introduce ma'am, she's a principal scientist at Central Research Institute for Dryland Agriculture. Ma'am's major area of work has been in with respect to drought, studying drought on crops, effects of drought on crops, and the impacts of climate change on crops. Thank you, ma'am, for starting off this session today. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Council for Grain Revolution, for giving this opportunity to share my thoughts. Actually, the topic was given as climate change and biodiversity. So they asked me to cover the impacts, adaptation, and mitigation options. And as I am agriculture scientist, I feel that I'll be more comfortable with the agriculture aspects, because other speakers may be dealing with the other aspects of the biodiversity. So before starting my presentation, I thought I can give some background of our information about the climate change. So initial slides of mine are dealing with the climate change. What is climate change and how it is going to impact the our agriculture. So climate change is not a new thing. Actually, the planet Earth has formed. The climate is changing, and it is a very continuous process. But why we have to think about now it is a threat or whatever the concern is, because the pace of the speed of the changes, that is not actually is not advisable, because the whatever the changes are happening over a period of time, the animals or plants or human beings are able to adapt. So thereby they were able to sustain. But now the pace of the change in the climatic conditions are so high that the adaptation is not happening. So this is the concern for the climate change studies. So as you know that it is very dynamic. Climate is very dynamic. Hydrosphere, lithosphere, and atmosphere. There is always exchange of the things between these spheres. So when there is a balance among these cycles, there is no problem. But when there is a drift or shift in this, then it will affect the atmosphere. Like the conditions where we are living, or the crops we are growing, or the animals where they are sustained. So when the climate change, the buzzword is the climate change, then the next word comes as global warming. So now we are saying that Earth is atmospheric temperatures are increasing. So why it is increasing? Actually, because of the greenhouse effect. Because the greenhouse gases are there. So one should aware what are these greenhouse gases, and why what is their role in maintaining the atmospheric temperature. So earth temperature is maintained by this greenhouse gases, because the warmth what we are getting is from the sun, and the radiation is having the warm radiation, like infrared radiation, which is absorbed by the earth, and some of it will be reflected back. But when it is reflecting back, these greenhouse gases will absorb, and this will be actually reason for the warmth on this planet Earth. Because when we are exploring other planets, this warmth is not there. So that warmth is now at the peak of our actually tolerable limit. So when it goes beyond our tolerable limit, we cannot sustain, or any living organism. So in that way, so when you are saying that what happens if this changes happens, so changing the rain and snow pattern. This is actually happening. Changes in animal migration and lifestyles, higher temperatures and more heat waves, more droughts and wildfires. Actually, these are all in recent times, we are all hearing about less snow and ice on the high altitudes, change in the plant life cycles. These are all projections. We can see that with these changes in the atmosphere. So what are the indicators? So glaciers are melting, snow cover is reducing. Actually, the tree lines are shifting, like the trees which are growing at low altitude, they are shifting to the higher altitudes, and spring is coming earlier. So all these things, sea level rise, sea ice melt is high, and temperature over oceans is increasing, and also of course our air temperatures and sea surface temperatures. These are all the indicators that where we can see that, feel that yes, there is a shift in the climate. So what are the potential climate change impacts? It is not only on human beings, but health, as not only for the human beings, and because in recent times we could see that infectious diseases have spreading at faster rate, and also the air quality and the respiratory illness also. In agriculture, the crop yields are going to reduce with the high temperature and change in the rainfall pattern. Of course, forest, like water resources, coastal areas because of sea level rise, and of course the today's topic is biodiversity, that is also going to disturb, because the sea level rise and precipitation is changing, and also the increase in the temperature. So before entering into the topic, I thought one should know that what are the major greenhouse gases. The 5 major: water vapor, which is not actually, it is like a relative humidity in the air. So this also is a major greenhouse gas, but carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, these are the 3 related with our activities, because of course ozone, now the ozone sunlight, because the hydrocarbons what we are emitting, that based on the sunlight reaction, the ozone will be formed. But these 3 are major for our concern, our human activities: carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. So they have different global warming potential. Actually, carbon dioxide is, if you take it as a global warming potential, methane has 25 times higher, and nitrous oxide has 300 times, like 298 times higher global warming potential. This also we should understand, because when you are emitting carbon dioxide, what will be the impact on the climate, and what is the methane impact, and what is the nitrous oxide impact. So where from these greenhouse gases are coming? So the major contributor is energy sector. So when you are addressing the climate change, you should understand that where you can curb this like greenhouse gas emissions. Agriculture, even though the agriculture is basically with the plants, it is due to usage of the fertilizers, and also the inundation, like water stagnation in the anaerobic condition. Due to anaerobic conditions and the rice fields, it is also contributing to the global greenhouse gases. It is also significantly contributing. So so what is the dynamics of this carbon stocks? So when you see that the oceans are the major stock of the carbon, and atmosphere, land, plants, and also soils. There is another carbon which is in the fossil fuels. That is the actually ancient plants which have fixed the carbon. It has gone deeper into the soil, and it is now we are digging out for our petrol and other gas usages. So when you see that the dynamics of this change, so the land and surface exchange, and also the oceans, and this particularly the industrial emissions. So when we see the balance sheet, actually the major issue is with the fossil carbon, which is coal, gas, oil, and other things which are emitting, which there is no account for that. Now we need to actually either fix or reduce the this emissions, impact of these emissions. So based on the usage and the energy requirement, the projections were made. Actually, based on the 1990, what will be by 2100? Because any measures, any policy decisions has to be taken to implement and to see that it has to work out without actually disturbing our day-to-day comforts. So then the projection says that when you take the 1990 as the base year, it will be around 2.5 times more by the 2100 carbon dioxide. Similarly, the methane and nitrous oxide also, it will be going to be double. So then based on that, the projections are the 1.4 degrees to 5.8 degrees increase will be there. So whether are we ready to face this type of increase in the temperature? So then they have actually recorded that from 1860 to 2000, how the temperatures of the Earth atmosphere is going increasing. So then what the basic understanding is that the northern hemisphere, the increase in the temperature is higher in the northern hemisphere. So because the land masses are more and the human activities are more. So based on that, and of course, the amount of carbon dioxide, you might have heard about Mauna Loa Observatory. They actually they will give the everyday, monthly, yearly, seasonally the carbon dioxide concentration, and and it is actually 414.72 ppm carbon dioxide concentration. It is a very high record, and also it reported that there is a 30% increase in the acidity of the oceans. So that actually, when you see the this particular graph, I have kept this for actually in when you see the carbon dioxide concentration, it has increased around 1990 by 350 ppm. This is the optimum, actually, the concentration Earth need to be have. But then it has gone even up to 400 ppm. That is the danger. And now we are recording more than 400 ppm. And by 2022, this is the 2022, it is around 415.73 ppm. It was reported, already reported. And one thing that the rate of increase, when you decadal increase, if you see that 60 to 70, it is 0.91. But by the 2000, it has gone up to 2.04 ppm per decade. In 2010, 11 to 20, it has even more, 2.43 ppm per year. So this is alarming. Actually, that's the where the IPCC and of course the COP meetings, they are actually working out how to reduce the emissions of this carbon dioxide. Actually, the same thing, actually the same thing they have reported, and this clearly shows that Earth is now, it is warming, and the warmth is actually, it is already crossed 1 degree increase by 2020. So sorry, this again. So coming to the biodiversity, actually when the total biomass of so all life of the Earth is made up of 82% of the plants, 13% of bacteria, and 5% of other things. In that, only 0.01% of Earth total biomass is consisted by the humans. But they have destroyed 83% of the wildlife. When we consider that the living organisms are 86% of living organisms on the land, only 1% in the seas, and 13% in the deep surface bacteria. So what is actually why we are so concerned? Because our activities are knowingly, unknowingly, we are damaging the biodiversity. So there we are reasons, we are the human beings are the reason for 83% of loss of wild mammals, and 80% of marine mammals, and 50% of plants, and 15% of fishes. That was the report given. And actually, this shows that actually the plants are 7,500 more times more than human beings, 17 times of these crustaceans, and of course fish 12 times than our human beings. So in this, actually, we should understand that even though we are in minimal content of the total Earth atmosphere, we are actually causing a lot of impact on others' survival. So that is actually is the concern, and we have to take care about how best we can actually minimize our activities to harm the other organisms. So some effects of global warming on agriculture will be the first thing is the loss of biodiversity in fragile environment, because every living organism needs some environment. If you are disturbing that environment, very few organisms will able to actually cope up with the changes and survive in a changed environments. But many organisms, they cannot survive if the temperature goes beyond 1 degree, or the humidity levels are the changes. So all these things will actually, the water requirement of that particular plant, or the temperature, even the flowering, or the requirement of, because of many other reasons, because they cannot survive. You cannot grow the apple in Hyderabad, because apple require a certain low temperatures which Hyderabad cannot have. So that shows a particular type of plants which cannot sustain. Like, I mean, maize. If you take the maize crop or rice crop, it is grown very widely across the globe, but not certain commodities where, like basmati rice. Even though if you grow the basmati rice in other locations, you may not able to get that flavor or the aroma. So such things. So when they assess that how, if it increase in 1 degree or 2 degree, 3 degree, and the projection was even 4.8 degrees. So if that happens, 5 degree increase is there. So what happens to different systems like food availability, water availability, and also the ecosystem. So extinction is going to happen if it is more than 3 to 4 degrees. There is a danger that higher risk will be there if so many genera or the organisms are going to extinct. So it is not that many times we always see the climate change as a negative thing, but there are some positive impacts and there are some negative impacts. The negative impacts everybody is feeling, but there are certain positive impacts like increased productivity from enhanced CO2, because the climate change is one of the component of climate change is the carbon dioxide. So increased carbon dioxide, you all know that the plants will take up the carbon dioxide, and that increased carbon dioxide will increase the photosynthetic rate, thereby the growth. So there is an possibility of increased productivity, improved water use. And another one aspect of carbon dioxide is that it processes the stomata, thereby lower the transpirational water loss. So for example, rainfed agriculture, when there is a dry spell of 10 days or 12 days, so when you increase the carbon dioxide, the photosynthesis will not affect it, but it also reduces the transpirational water loss. So thereby it can sustain a longer period under the dry spell. And you all know that there are temperate regions and tropical. Ours is our country comes from the tropical, but temperate regions where in certain crops the temperature actually temperature is a limitation for their growth and this thing. So there we can expect that these warmer temperatures can increase the productivity. So higher the temperature, as they increase the temperature, the maturity will be faster. So the duration of the crop will decrease. And whereas in the high altitudes, there is a longer growing seasons also expected. And with the changed conditions, we can think of introducing the new crops, which is having some commercial or cash, like economical to the farmers, or new crops or new plants can be introduced. This is one way of looking at the climate change. Whereas the negative impacts is increase the drought and floods. Of course, you are all aware about all these things. Increase soil erosion, and of course there are new weeds we can expect, and diseases, and of course the efficacy. Even you need to use more fertilizers or more herbicides or more pesticides. That is also will be there. So climate change impacts by increasing the temperature, increasing the, because all the organisms are not actually comfortable with the increased carbon dioxide content, change in the precipitation and evaporation, because now you all know that this particular rainfall pattern is changing. So with high temperature, high evaporation is expected, and melting of glaciers. These glaciers are the actually source of water for many of our rivers like Ganges, so Ganga river. So like that, if glaciers are melt, then the flow of the rivers will be affected. Of course, sea level rise and inundation of the coastal areas, and intrusion of saline water into the land, and thereby the salinity problem is going to be more. Of course, the impact will be changing the habitat, like shift in plant and animal. As I was saying, that change in the temperature and rainfall pattern, it will influence the habitat. So thereby there is a shift in the plants, and as I was mentioning, new plants may come here, and the already existing plants may shift to the higher altitudes or new niches. Rapid changes, and because as I was mentioning, the climate change is very rapid, so it is not matching with the pace of adaptation that any organism can have. Changing the composition of ecosystem, species interaction, and invasive species. Like when there is the composition of ecosystem is changing, because there is always a dependence of plant to plant or plant to animal, like pollination. When the pollination need to happen, they depend on a particular butterflies or flies. So that flies, if they are not adapted to that particular environment, the pollination will not. And that will actually influence the survival of the particular crop. Shifting seasons and phenology. This is also a concern. So the seasons are shifting, and the flowering is happening at one time, and the coming of the butterflies is happening the other time. So that all will change their survival. So the classical example is that actually when you see that in a particular coffee, Robusta coffee, this particular Robusta coffee cannot be grown in this country. In Uganda, if you see that the particular Robusta coffee cannot be grown if the temperature goes beyond 2 degrees. So the whole economy of that country is disturbed. So now they have to see that after 100 years, or by the end of this 2100, if this change happens, what next? What is the alternative? What adaptation strategies they should work out? So the particular economy, like economic contribution by this Robusta coffee, whether we can substitute with any other cash crop, or what are the other measures, are to go for the same coffee, where this Robusta coffee can be made as tolerant to this high temperature, or locations where you can see that this Robusta coffee can be grown. All these need to work out, because to strategies to be implemented by government, it requires a lot of budget, and also the skills. So that sort of, because of many times, like if you are eating Sona Masuri rice, and I'll say that this Sona Masuri cannot be grown in our area, and some XYZ variety can be grown better under these changed conditions, but the consumer will not accept that. So either you have to develop a high temperature tolerant or low water required Sona Masuri varieties. To develop that, it requires at least 10 to 15 years. So that sort of policy decision and also the budgetary allocation require some time. So in this, they say that one should have an assessment how the things will be by at least by another 20 years or 30 years. So based on that, they made that how the crop yields are going to change. So they say that by 2080, majority of the areas are going to experience from 10% to 40% yield reduction. in these countries. It is based on the increase in the temperature and their requirement of the water and the sensitivity of the crops they are growing. So when coming to the India, actually at CREDA, we have one ECRIPOM, like All India Coordinated Research Project on Agrometeorology. They work on that weather conditions and they relate with the crop. So they said they have shown that there is an increasing trend in temperature, but there is certain areas they have shown that there is a decrease and there is no change. This is more than 50 years, based on the 50 years data they have shown that. But you know, one should understand that the temperature is again controlled by the near to the water bodies and the elevation, and also the tree cover or the green cover. All these things will dictate your temperature. So that when we assessed this thing, then there is a change. There is a different, because based on this, then we have to work out the strategies how to cope up this increased temperature with the different cropping systems and the water requirement, like the construction of dams or rivers and other things. So when they have assessed the rainfall pattern, it is completely different, because it is not giving any trend when you do mean values of the all over India. But when you assess, this is also done by our ECRIPOM region, that they have shown that there is a decreasing trend in the central, and of course the rainfall is decreasing, because each area is having its own like rainfall, and that rainfall, if it is decreasing, then you can expect a droughts. So the moderate droughts, in the droughts also we have a moderate droughts and severe droughts also. Severe droughts, especially, you can see the frequency is increasing at the western areas, and moderate droughts in the eastern areas. Of course, in western areas, also in eastern areas, we can see that the drought probability of occurrence is increasing. So, and also we have seen that it was also observed that the rainfall pattern, like you all know that the June 12th was the opening of the schools, majority of the schools, because our monsoon is set in the second week, like June 10th. So thereby the temperatures will come down, so the children can actually attend the schools. But what happens, in the same way, our monsoon like Kharif crops will be sown during the June first week or second week. But what our actually studies shown that the rainfall pattern is changing. If you see the 60 to 90 and 90 to 2000, the rainfall is increasing in the June, July, August, but it is decreasing during the September, and while it is increasing the October, that's in the Anantapur area. Because this particular month is basically for the pod filling and actually reproductive growth, that is hampered. So that's why, and when they have to harvest, that time they are getting higher rainfall. So this is actually happening over the past 10 years, 2019 to 2000. So they said that this need to change the cropping pattern or cropping sowing dates. So thereby they can actually escape. So similarly, they have worked out the water requirement based on the increase projections in the increase in the temperature. What is the water requirement for a wheat crop? They have worked for Haryana, and they have shown that in certain areas the increased temperature is actually demanding more water to raise the, and also there is a climatic shifts in the areas. So like humid to perhumid or semi-arid to arid. Like in Solapur, it is shifting to the, so based on that, again, you need to change your cropping system. So there is a, of course, there is one network project on climate change, and in that we have done studies that CMFRA, Cochin Marine Fisheries Institute, that the temperatures of the subsurface surface temperatures of oceans is increasing over a period of time, and it was also found that the oil sardine catch, because this is one of the actually important fish. So initially it was there in the west coast, but over a period they could find a better. It is a positive actually, I can say. And whereas it coming to the apple production, because of the yield in the Himachal Pradesh, especially the Himachal, it is decreasing, because what they have found that the chilling requirement for the bud burst of the apple is not happening in the lower altitudes. So that is causing the decrease in the apple yield at the lower end. So based on these preliminary observations, the Indian government wanted a mega program, that is in National Innovations in Climate Resilient Agriculture. A mega project was given to the Indian Council of Agriculture Research and CRIDA, Central Research Institute for Dryland Agriculture. Our institute was the nodal agency to implement this program. Actually, they want to assess the impact of climate change and also to work out the adaptive strategies in all the sectors of agriculture, including the dairying and also fisheries. So we have to evolve the climate resilient agriculture technologies, because we have to sustain the production and productivity. Continuous management of natural and man-made resources also is one of the actually thrust areas given to this NICRA project. Actually, it has 4 modules: natural resource, crop production, livestock and fisheries, and also the enabling, the support systems. Because it is not just by saying that you can plant this variety, you will get. No, it is not only the plant, the soil, water, and also the of course, to sustain the income of a farmer, he should have a proper livestock, and also the supporting system. Like the government has to support, like when there is a high temperature or high intense rainfalls and there is a loss of crop, the farmer need to have support system. In that actually in crop production, integrated farming system, and also the resilient crops and crop cultivars need to be identified in this crop production module. And also the natural resource management, the soil health and carbon sequestration, rainwater harvesting and recycling, because the water available need to be conserved and used properly, and also in situ moisture conservation need to be actually they were addressed in this. In the livestock and fisheries, feed and fodder, health and shelter, and stress tolerant breeds. Anyway, you are going to actually face the high temperature. So the stress tolerant breeds also need to be identified and developed. If they are not there, we need to develop. Enabling supporting system, we actually came up with a custom hiring center where farmer can have the implements like if he has to go for immediate sowing or plowing, so he need not to have a bigger tractors. One need not to possess, and by hiring they can complete the operation. Seed and fodder bank, because we are promoting a new varieties or new crops, so the availability of seed and also for the animals, the fodder, and climate services and agro advisories. So the farmers need to be actually informed what will be the next, like long-term advisories or short-term, medium range advisories. Like within another 1 week, 10 days, if the rainfall is going to happen, so you can advise a farmer to go for the harvest or save the crop, or sowing. For sowing, he can take up. Like that, the agro advisories also plays a major role. And of course, village climate risk management committees, they are also formed under this module. Actually, before implementing any program, one should know what are the major actually climate vulnerable components in that. So based on the past data, they made the highly vulnerable, medium vulnerable, and very highly vulnerable districts. So based on that, the implementation of the programs, it is because some of the programs will be implemented by the center, some will be by the state. So we can suggest that these are the areas where the vulnerability is very high. So the budget, because budget is also major constraint to implement climate related these things, so actions. So then they can first implement it where the highly vulnerable districts are there. So in each state, how many districts are vulnerable, very highly vulnerable, and so in that way, agriculture, because for the agriculture, what are the actually districts we can address these things by 21 to 50. So where we can take up the measures, where you can introduce a new water body, or we can introduce a new crop cultivar, like that we can work out. So it was actually, there is a one component in the NICRA project is technology demonstration, TDC component, where initially we have taken up in 120 stations, addressing the drought and heat wave, drought and flood, like that. It is not the single climate variability, but there are, because that particular area is very vulnerable to that commodity. And to have a continuous weather information, 100 weather stations were established all across India to get the it was also observed that there is a, like in Mahbubnagar in Telangana, there is a, it is not only actually drought hit area, but the continuous persistent drought, because 1 year drought and 2 years proper rainfall may actually enable the farmer to cope up. But when there is a persistent drought for 12 years, it completely actually affects the farming community, especially the because I'm working with the rain-fed agriculture. Drought is completely affects the socio-economic condition of that. So the variability, increasing the variability. So it is high rainfall or low rainfall, and it is not actually not happening with a trend like a 1 year drought and 2 years or 3 years. So it is not happening. This is also need to be addressed by the local bodies and of course state government. So climate resilient village is another concept where we have weather information, village weather stations will be there, automatic weather stations and weather-based advisories, and documentation of aberrant weather, awareness building through extension, and real-time measures when there is a high dry spell. So what are the measures when there is a pest incidents or high pest incidents? What are the actually measures one has to take up that real time, on real-time basis? And water, aquifer recharge, for aquifer recharge, what are the structures need to be taken up, and groundwater recharge, and the in situ moisture conservation, farm ponds. These are all the measures we will take up for the particular crop commodity, fertilizer, carbon, institutional knowledge, how best they can have institutional setup to cope up with this climate change. And as I was saying, for drought, in situ conservation, and the farming, and what are the actually regions where the high drought like vulnerable to low moisture. So those things need to be check dams, pond, like this resilient practices for the rainwater. So in situ conservation. So by ridges and furrow, sowing across slopes, bed and furrow, like earthening up of cotton, like this we have different technologies demonstrated, and they have like floods and cyclones. When there is a flood and renovation of drainage channels, why it is happening, to first to take up that, and land configuration and planting techniques, like then go for the flood tolerant cultivars. If it is happening very frequent, go for the and post flooding management. Once floods comes, and then the sand and mud, so the prevention of, because it immediately triggers the diseases, and vaccination, and also the shelter management. So all these things we are, of course we have different infrastructure to actually monitor and also work out the impacts. This weather stations, all these things, satellite data set, and animal. All these things were established in this MICRA project. And of course, for the animal component also, tolerant genotypes were identified for wheat, rice, pigeon pea, tomato, and also livestock. These are the intercropping, sorry. So already the Swarna sub 1, it was a success story, and a flood tolerant paddy variety in these varieties, and they could see that how the local varieties were giving, and what is the percentage increase in the yield, and what is the benefit, and fodder production, like livestock based interventions will be fodder production, and also improved shelter management of breeds identifying, and also the silage making for off season availability of the feed. Dry months, how best we can actually make use of the available fodder during the lean periods. So that is also, so thereby you can actually have sustained yield production even during the lean seasons. So village risk management committees will be formed because they will from the local people. So thereby they can actually resolve their because problems which are having the local importance. So thereby they can identify the problems, and they can actually take necessary actions to cope up with the this thing. So so the climate resilient agriculture, basically technologies, crop varieties, livestock breeds, and management practice, they were identified and implemented in the climate resilient agriculture. Improved preparedness for minimizing the impact of climate change variability through location specific, because it is not happening like now. You can see here that Tamil Nadu is having heavy downpour, and lot of paddy areas are inundated. So these are location specific technologies need to be, and also policy options for promoting climate smart agriculture, particularly by, because the whatever the vagaries are there, majority of the damage will go to the small and marginal farmers, those who doesn't have that much coping mechanisms. So the climate change timeliness is action should be collective action, and also it should have an innovative way to address those issues. So coming to the agriculture, actually agriculture production depends on crop variety, temperature, water availability, and management. So this decides the the success of the any agriculture in a particular area. And because each crop has different temperature thresholds for each phenological stage, individual, like if it is happens only drought, the impact will be different. If it is having high temperature, that will be different. So at CREDA, we have different facilities to study the impact of future climatic conditions, like open top chambers. This is just to give a brief, because I want to familiarize with this sort of work what CREDA is doing. This facility basically to increase the carbon dioxide in the crop vicinity, where we can grow the crops in the open field, and also we can increase the carbon dioxide in this area. Thereby we can see the impact of carbon dioxide on the crop. And this is another facility, free air temperature elevation, where we can increase the temperature, and also we have the CO2, where we can increase the, because the IR heaters are used and CO2 is pumped. It is like very costly experimentation, because in the open field you have to increase the temperature and increase the carbon dioxide. Thereby we can assess that whether the present cultivars can sustain in the future. So thereby it gives the accurate measurement of their impact. So these facilities were created, and these are the carbon dioxide and temperature gradient, where we can have a 30-meter length chambers were there. From one end to other end, we have +1 to +5 degrees. So even if +5 degrees increase is there, whether that particular variety will sustain or not, or which are the tolerant varieties, and what are the actually traits which are actually contributing to their tolerance. So to assess that, and initial studies they have shown that cereal crops have less actually adapted to increased carbon dioxide, whereas the pulse crops like dal, whatever the pappu dhanyal antam kada, avi ekkuva because of their symbiotic nitrogen fixation, they have shown higher actually improvement in this. And another very interesting thing what we observed, that phenology. Phenology means the flowering time. So it is early with the CO2, and crop like castor, where the male and female flowers are there, it has become more of female flowers. The female flowers will turn into the capsules and give the yield. So this is very like positive thing with the castor. And when there is a dry condition, we always see that total spike becomes the male. So there is a huge yield loss will be there. But with the CO2, we have seen that it has become, and also the in pulse crops like pigeon pea, we have seen that there is a variation within the genotypes. With the CO2, it is actually increasing the seed yield in some of the genotypes, whereas in some genotypes it is not that high. So the genotypes which are giving high yield can be sustained under future conditions. And in diagram also we have seen that all the some 18 genotypes we have tested, and they have shown that there is an increase, because we studied in summer when the temperature is going beyond 40 degrees, in winter when there is temperature is around 24-25. So during majority of the genotypes, they have shown that reduced growth under high temperature and also yield. But when high CO2 is there, even during the summer also, the genotypes were able to perform better. And another interesting point, we have seen that in groundnut, it is a oil seed and also a symbiotic nitrogen fixing legume crop. And the CO2 improved the seed yield and also the oil content. And another thing, what we have seen, oleic to linoleic acid. Oleic acid has increased. So in the similar way, when we have actually evaluated the maize crop, which is very sensitive to the high temperatures, there is a drastic reduction in the yield with the elevated temperature. This is decrease, what I am saying, and the seed yield has gone down, and because with the CO2 the decrease was minimized. So this sort of observations we could see. And of course the pigeon pea, again the pulse crop, which is the major source of protein for the vegetarian people, this particular crop has shown that the high temperature is going to reduce it drastically, the yield, basically the yield and yield parameters. And with the because in the future we are expecting that CO2 is also going to be there. So when the CO2 increase is also there, it is actually completely nullifying the or completely significantly reducing the reduction due to the high temperature. And of course, in groundnut, as I was saying, that oleic to linoleic, this is good for the heart patients. The quality of the oil is improving with the CO2. So that we have observed. And also we have seen there is a genotypic variability within the groundnut crop. So when you have to choose the variety for the future, you should have the proper genotype with the good qualities. So that can be taken up when you are evaluating more genotypes. So coming to the end, climate change is a terrible threat. It is a threat, but there are options available, and we can work out for that. And if we say that yes, whatever is going to happen, it is not wise, and we have to act, and we have to search or explore the options, and thereby we can address the climate change. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vanita ma'am. We actually have one question here from a student. Shall I ask you the question now?
Yeah, please.
The question is, what's the difference between climate smart agriculture and climate resilient agriculture?
Yeah, actually climate smart will address all sectors of the agriculture. So we are not only, of course, it looks like synonym, but climate smart means many of the options available at that particular location that we have to search. There is a hypothesis and there is a practical. So when you are resilient, when it comes to the resilience, then because it need to address the local problems, local issues, and in a holistic manner. Because as I was mentioning, you can climate smart agriculture may propose that a particular variety can be grown there, but climate resilient agriculture gives you options where you can actually go for as per your requirement. Because Sona Masuri can be grown there, but there is a reduction in the yield. So how best you can decrease that yield reduction? So in that way, you can actually choose the options in the resilient agriculture. I hope I am clear.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for sharing other things like basic introduction of greenhouse gases, global warming, and climate change. I'm sure those who missed the previous webinars would have found this very useful. And also about sharing about national innovation and climate resilient agriculture, that you are working in it, and that it's the nodal agency for all climate resilient agriculture works. So thank you for sharing that, ma'am. We will now move on to Dr. Hari Sarwat, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll be there, but
yes, ma'am. I think there will be some more questions by the end of the session. So if you have time, please do stay back.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Dr. Hari here?
Yeah, I'm joined. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Yes, sir. Your name is not shown here. Okay. I'll introduce you, sir, and then you can take over.
Sure.
Sir has retired as Deputy Director General of Geological Survey of India, and one of the most important works that Sir had taken care of, which is urban geo-environmental mapping of Hyderabad, is the reason why any disaster preparedness that can happen in the city happens because of this kind of mapping. And also, Sir has authored several books which are used as textbooks in universities and are kept as an important part of their libraries. Thank you so much, sir, for being a part of this webinar. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I shall share the screen. One question. Yeah. Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me for this webinar. This afternoon, I will be talking in brief about the Anthropogene influenced climate change, a cause for the loss of species diversity and shrinkage of biodiversity hotspots. In fact, both are very dangerous. Loss of species is really a concern, and loss of biodiversity is also going to be very highly concerned. So for those who are not very familiar with the biodiversity, I have just put it in the opening slide itself. You can see the species diversity among the animals, about the ocean, then a lot of floral, and then this thing, bees and other things.
Sir, can you go to slideshow, sir?
Yeah, this is slide, no?
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah, it is, sir. Is it there? Can you see?
Yes.
Yeah.
Slideshow. It is not coming as slideshow.
Okay. No?
No, it is not.
No. Now, is it coming?
It's coming, but it is not changeable.
You may unshare and stop sharing and again share, sir. I think you have to first put it in slideshow.
Okay, right. Okay.
Above that presentation, you will have that share.
Yeah.
From there you can.
Now is it coming? Has it coming now?
No, I think not.
Oh.
Otherwise, you can go ahead, sir. Yeah, I think
Now, is it coming? Okay.
it is not in slideshow, but it's. I think it is fine.
Yes, yes, sir. It's showing.
Yeah. It's showing. Okay.
Yes, sir. Continue. Continue.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So this is just in brief about the biodiversity about which I am going to speak. You know very well there are three types of biodiversity. One is species biodiversity. Second is genetic biodiversity, as we find here. They're all dogs, but then they belong to different genetic biodiversity. Similarly, flowers also. And then we have another ecosystem biodiversity, which is very important. We'll be discussing briefly in this course of this presentation. Okay. Of course, biodiversity is defined like this. Convention of Biological Diversity, CBD 1992, is variability among living organisms from all source, being terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems and ecological complexes of which they are part. This includes diversity within the species, between the species, and of the ecosystem. You know very well that there are 4 spheres for the planet Earth, and all of them show very extremely diverse biodiversity. So that is what we are going to discuss about it. And then this biodiversity is getting disturbed. Not only disturbed, it is threatened by large extent by the human actions. That's what my title also says, anthropogene, that is human influenced, human genetically, human related influence climate change. Okay, so let's go this. And as you all know, the biodiversity is spatial and temporal. That is, it can be expressed in terms of space and time. Its study provides insight to changes in species, ecosystem functioning, and ecosystem services. Biodiversity can be used to describe species ecosystem, and Convention of Biological Diversity, CBD, defines definition incorporates ecosystem also, of which we are part of the ecosystem, and it is comparable to the biome in Wilson's definition. Biome is essentially a Wilson's definition. Everything, flora, fauna, and then the geography, everything put together, it forms a biome. And ecosystem also forms a biome. So, and threats to this biodiversity of the ecosystem and biomes are extinction of species and biodiversity loss. Ladies and gentlemen, you can feel that both are extremely bad for the human system, because extinction of species spells something very bad for us as a humans, and biodiversity loss also does not sound well for people like us, who have to necessarily coexist with the biome and by this ecosystem completely. So we have to take this very seriously and take whatever action as human beings we do to improve the ecosystem, and also the stop the climate change and warming has to be done. And both these are influenced by anthropogenic causes globally, more so in populous countries like India. Why? Because you see, India has an area of 2.4% of the global area, whereas we are supporting a population of 17.7% of the global population, almost 140 crores, 1.4 billion. Whereas the global area, the rest of the global area is about 97.6, 100 minus 2.4, and the other rest of the population lives in this 97.6% of the global area. So India has all the more the reason to worry about the extinction of species and biodiversity loss because of this gross imbalance in the area and population growth. Okay, so
Sir, slides are not moving, sir.
pardon?
Your slides are not moving. It is still in the first.
Okay. So shall I take a minute? Just I will put it off and is it moving now?
No slide has been seen.
Okay. Okay.
No slide.
No, sir.
No, is it not coming now?
You shouldn't be share the slide.
Now we are in the biodiversity hotspots. Okay. Now,
No, sir. It is not visible.
it is not sharing.
No, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. So what to do now? So shall I go ahead with,
Yes.
is this now biodiversity hotspot? Can you see?
No.
Share your slides once again, sir.
Yeah, I will do that. I'm doing it. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is about the biodiversity hotspots. Having spoken about biodiversity, now let us briefly discuss about biodiversity hotspots are also areas with significant levels of biodiversity that face threat from various sources, including humans, or biodiversity hotspots. Lithosphere and hydrosphere are the large reservoirs of biodiversity, but several species or living organisms in these regions are threatened with the destruction and the extinction. Study of the hotspots is important due to the threats faced by the plant and animal species. That's the reason we are studying the hotspots. And ladies and gentlemen, biodiversity hotspots refer to about just 25 biologically rich areas in the world, not in India, in the world, that have lost approximately 70% of the original natural habitat. Can you imagine 70% is already lost? But whatever is remaining, now we have the remaining number is 34. In fact, originally it was 34. Now it is only 25. So even the hotspots have also shrunk. This is not a good news for the humanity. We have to do something very drastically to keep the hotspots safe. Otherwise, all the remaining plants and flora and fauna, they will become threatened, rare, and even extinct. So it is a really alarming situation. And the remaining habitat of those regions is just 2.3%. Just imagine 70% of this are occupying only 2.3% of the land area of the earth. Yet it supports 60%. Earlier it used to be 60%. Now it is only 70%. Now it is only 60%. Only plant, birds, mammal, reptile, and amphibian species. Ladies and gentlemen, these are all extremely important. As you know, I don't have to, insist on this, but you can imagine plants, birds, mammal, reptile, and amphibian, how important these are. They are the ones which keep the ecosystem clean, absolutely. So if they are lost, even from this 2.3% of the land surface, I think it is not going to be a good news to all of us. So excessive anthropogenic influence triggers reduction in the area of the hotspots. That is what is the studies all over the globe. It is excessive anthropogenic influence, human influence. And these activities lead to species reduction and hotspot shrinkage. And these two are definitely not good news to both the global population. And these are the what you call published information. You can see the human imprint in biodiversity hotspots. This is, yeah, this is published in it's this one, and there is volume number 6, Frontiers in Ecology and Environment, the Ecological Society of America, ESA. So this is a very important publication. You can see this volume 16 and issue 8. They are discussing about all these things. Okay. Yeah, this is the, you can, this is the, has the slide changed? Can you see the map? Ladies and gentlemen, can you see the map? Map of the 34 biodiversity hotspots?
No, sir.
No.
No?
You choose the next slide, sir. Within 5 slides. Yes, sir. Now it is.
Yeah. It has come? Yeah. So these are the, all the red ones are the hotspots. This is February 2005 publication, predicting plant diversity patterns in Madagascar. I mean, this is taken from there. You can see why even the existing, you see, this is Sri Lanka. This is a hotspot. There's a hotspot here. You can see how in a bad condition the elephants are living now, and that's the reason I said even the existing hotspots are under danger. And not only in India, it is not only in India and Sri Lanka, it is again in United States and Canada, everywhere. It is the same, because we have encroached the area that belong to the wildlife and the plants and the flora, fauna, and all that. Okay, so this map shows the 34 biodiversity hotspots. Now it is 2005. Now it is reduced to 25 biodiversity also. And this area has reduced to 1.7. This is definitely not a good sign for the Earth, planet Earth. Okay. Has the change? Has it changed? Has the health of biodiversity? Can you see? Has the slide changed?
No, sir. Yeah.
I think there is a gap in time actually.
Okay.
So what happens? You see, the health of biodiversity and hotspots is a function of warming and climate change, which in turn is a function of enhanced greenhouse effect and gas emissions. And ultimately, this itself is a function of anthropogenic influence. Once anthropogenic influence is there, we emit a lot of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere that leads to warming and climate change, and then it leads to health of biodiversity. Everything goes for a toss completely. So this is a process of anthropogenic influence climate change. You can see so we are all keeping ourselves very cool by the lot of air conditioners, but then we don't realize that carbon dioxide, methane, chlorofluorocarbon, CFC, hydrofluorocarbon, HCFC, volatile organic compounds, and oxides of nitrogen, sulfur, are the emissions into the atmosphere from all these sources. Even the cattle, they leave out a lot of methane into the atmosphere. Even the fields. Okay, so this is the way the Earth has reduced now. And as a result, ladies and gentlemen, you have the huge ice sheets coming out of the main ice sheets in the polar areas like Antarctica. This is from Antarctica. You can see from main sheet, it has traveled, it has got dislocated from such a far off area, and it has come here. And here also it is not safe. It is coming into the Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean also, and then they get transported. And you are, as a result, you are getting extreme weather conditions. There's the Kosi River, and you can say 54% of India is facing extremely high water stress because of this influence, human influence. And you can see the thermal imagery of entire North India. This is last year's image, 2021. You can see the extreme weather condition, major parts of India, North India, that Indo-Gangetic plain, they were undergoing a lot of heat wave. So it leads to all this type of undesired things like global increase of about 0.4 degrees centigrade per decade. It leads to El Nino. They lead to droughts, like water shortage and failure of agriculture. You can see for a country like India, if so far by God's grace it has not happened. But then sometime or other, we are expecting that there may be some issues of failure of agriculture in pockets of all over India. So before that, we have to wake up, and then we have to take some corrective measures. Then bushfires, shrinkage of glaciers, breakage of continental ice in polar regions, then flash floods due to heavy rains, atmospheric disturbances, and extreme weather conditions like this. It is also extreme weather condition. Okay. Now, has the slide changed?
No, sir. 7.
No. Yeah.
7th slide.
So that is United Nations Siberian Cranes, the title. Okay. You can see in the year 2000, summer of 2020, 2 years back, when we were all locked up in the lockdown, this is what had happened. 350 elephants died in Okavango Delta in Botswana, and it is mainly anthropogenic cause. Later on, it was identified as the anthropogenic cause. That is because of the bacterial infection. These things should not happen in a civilized world. I won't say India and all. It's a civilized world. It should not happen. Then penguins face the biome change. Absolutely, they are also helpless. Absolutely, because all the ice sheets have melted. Their habitats are on the ice sheets. Now, since the ice sheets in Antarctica has completely, no, in large extent, they have completely melted. They are totally helpless now. They are living on the rocks. Absolutely. Then there are indications that United Nations has already described that Siberian cranes are at the verge of extinction due to enhanced greenhouse gases in atmosphere. Now they may be one of the last batches of Siberian cranes coming to India, like Bharatpur and other places. But then I don't know how far they are going to last. So they may become a history of the past. So again, in the anthropogenic, that in 17 million minks were culled in 2020.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hari sir,
Yes.
can we go a little faster? We have 2 more speakers. Just a little faster.
No, I can't follow you. What is it?
Can we do the slides a little faster, sir?
Yeah. Sure, definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah. So these are the Amazon rainforests have caught fire, and you can see the conditions of all these things. These are all extreme weather conditions, and you can why it is all happening is the
Sir, you're on Sir, Hari sir, you're on mute. Unmute, sir.
Sir, unmute your mic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 1 second.
I think you can unshare first. I think stop sharing, then you can.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Am I audible?
Now audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So this is the floodplain zoning of Central Water Committee (CWC). This B, C are national and state wildlife forests and all that. They are prohibitive. A is prohibitive zone, restrictive zone. This B zone is a restrictive zone, and C zone. C is warning zone. You can see in Chennai flood what happened. Completely, a stream has been completely. It is in the. It is in the almost in the B, that is restrictive zone. They have constructed houses in all these places. So where will the flora and fauna go? Same way, Kaziranga National Park was extending to this much, and then there was some Nambor Wildlife Sanctuary. They used to exist in the year 70s and 80s. But today, Kaziranga National Park is restricted to only this place. It's very unfortunate. So, why I'm saying all these things is now they have been most of this area have been converted into agricultural field, and then many of the have human habitats. You can see, excepting national park, everything other thing is there. School and plantation, everything, church, everything is there. So this does not spell good for the biodiversity. That is all I wanted to say. Okay. So now the Kaziranga National Park has the slide changed to a map. Kaziranga National Park in Assam is restricted only to this much. That's all. So you can see how much of human habitats have come in and around. So as a result, what is happening is they're all coming onto the roads completely. They are they are in a very pathetic shape. Whenever there is a flood, they come onto the road, and this is the way they are living now. Okay. We have fenced the Kaziranga National Park. See, they have come onto the roads completely. This is 2020, May 2020. Same Kaziranga, Assam. This is the stress on Kaziranga wildlife during 2020 floods. So why I'm showing is this is a stress we have created. The humans anthropogenically created stress on the wildlife and both flora and fauna. Okay, the main anthropogenic reasons for stress on the biodiversity and hotspot is alterations in land use and land cover in all the continents. All continents, ladies and gentlemen, please remember. It is not only for India, it is all continents in favor of agriculture, urban and rural development, landfills like this, industries including power stations, economic and special economic zones, SEs and corridors, geotechnical projects like dams, bundled water bodies to tackle slope stability issues. It results in huge landslides. Mining, of course, mining definitely gives a lot of GDP. So you cannot exactly say mining is the main cause, but then it contributes a little. Then finally, the entertainment. We construct a lot of luxury resorts, playgrounds, so on and so forth, in place where we are not supposed to construct, where those areas are meant only for the biodiversity, like flora and fauna. A disappearance of water bodies and marshes. You can say marshes are under stress. Widespread carnivorous habit of the humans. This is also a very big concern now, depriving the feed animals to the wildlife. Creation of and spread of pathogens like bacteria, virus, which are harmful to the animal life. Like we have seen, the minks were completely uh, culled in the Netherlands. Okay, so this comes in the way like acid rains and destroys the forest, marshes become toxic, then eutrophication kills the water bodies, terrestrial water bodies unsuitable for aquatic life, and breeding place for the pathogenic organisms. So these are the anthropogenic. These are shown for the anthropogenic. So as a result, we are having this also. Biodiversity in the marine ecosystem is also equally affected because of the oil spill. Oil spill, you can see a tanker full of crude oil. It got it completely, offloaded in the mid of the ocean, and huge oil spill happened. And because of that, you can see the marine biodiversity getting affected, victims of oil spill. Okay. So what is the solution? Now, these are the problems I have described, but what are the solution? Solution is to preserve the species and restore the biodiversity hotspot is implement COP21 or December 2015 meeting and Paris Agreement decisions in letter and spirit for keeping the temperature below 2 degrees above the pre-industrial area level and limiting the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees centigrade. So if this is implemented in letter and spirit, this Paris Agreement decisions, I think our major now COP21, it happened in 2015, COP27, of course, is happening now. Nothing has been done. We know what has been done, but if it is implemented in letter and spirit, most of these things will not happen. The biodiversity may improve. Then arrest emissions into atmosphere by preventing warming and delay of the climate change. Invest in carbon sequestration technologies, process of removing carbon from atmosphere and depositing in the reservoirs. It can be done in many ways. Carbon sequestration is the order of the day. Everyone has to, whether we like it or not, everyone has to invest in these carbon sequestration technologies. Enhance forest cover, dense greenery, support proliferation of indigenous flora. Indigenous flora. I am underscoring this indigenous flora because they are the ones which are the biodiversity of the particular biome. So if we take care of the indigenous flora, that we are taking care of the biodiversity to a large extent. Then preserve the biodiversity hotspots and species, arrest species mutation and endemic viruses. That's also very important. Cut down the personal carbon footprint. That's very important. Wherever possible, you try to use the minimum things what is available to you. Thereby, you can reduce the carbon footprint. Preserve the floral and faunal species in all biomes and ecosystems. Protect the soil, rivers, and natural water bodies. Lead a lifestyle that produces minimum or no solid waste. Of course, it is easier said than done, but then we can always give a try. Definitely, we will be able to do if we are able to lead a lifestyle that produces minimum solid base, definitely things will be definitely better. So with this note, I take leave. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, sir, for just sharing the problems but also the solutions. I think I have a few follow-up questions, but I'll ask it in the end. Let's move on to Dr. Vijaya from Tara Government Degree College. Ma'am, over to you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm very thankful to Council of Green Revolution and the cells and each and every member of the organization who has arranged this webinar.
Unshare your, I think, presentations. First ask the...
Yeah. Hello.
Okay, madam, I think you can continue.
Can I?
Yes, ma'am. Continue.
Yeah. Please share my slides, sir. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, one and all of this organization who has given me the chance or the opportunity to express myself in this webinar. So I'm Vijaya from Tara Government College. I'm an academician. I teach students. I be with the students. So today is my topic. I would like to share something on the threats to biodiversity. Okay, we all know what is biodiversity. It's nothing but it's an ecosystem and it's an area. It's a place where both flora and fauna live together. Both flora and fauna, the plants and the animals, they are interdependable. Like the flora, they undergo a process called photosynthesis, because of which they take the carbon dioxide, they release the oxygen, and they prepare their food. And that food and that oxygen is utilized by the fauna, and that fauna, it releases the carbon dioxide. So they are interrelated. So each one of us in society, we are interrelated, we are interdependent on each other. We are not single. So that message, this nature, it gives us to the humankind. It's such a beautiful message, but still we won't understand that. Because of our greed, because of the globalization, because of the urbanization, we are destroying so many things in the nature. Okay, now coming to the next slide, that is the threats. What are the threats? How the threats have come? The second slide, threats to biodiversity. Why the threats are there? What is the need? When the nature, when the Mother Earth is giving so much to us, why we are creating all those things? We have to pick ones. Though there are n number of organizations, the rules and the regulations, but still we are, the biodiversity is under threat. There's n number of reasons are there. I'm giving just few examples here, like the habitat loss, the pollution, the over-exploitation, the invasive species, and the climate change. What is in habitat loss? It's nothing but the plants and animals is becoming extinct. Why? Because of the globalization, because of the urbanization. We want to improve, we want to develop, we want to become civilized, but at the cost of the nature. Because of the overpopulation, because of the deforestations. Next slide, please. Because of the deforestation, because of the globalizations, the natural habitat is getting disturbed. Once the natural habitat it gets disturbed, the flora and the fauna which are existing there, which are living there, it gets disturbed. And that is related to an environmental loss. It has become a threat to the biodiversity. The main reason are the human beings. I feel, it's my opinion. So because of the habitat loss, the species diversity, the species are becoming extinct. There is a loss in species diversity, there is loss in genetic diversity, there is loss in ecosystem diversities because of the globalization. Yes, globalization should be there, but not at the cost of the loss of biodiversity or threat to the biodiversity. We are planting n number of trees. Like, for example, if you go to the roadsides, we see the n number of conocarpus plants are being grown. But the result of the conocarpus is the pollens which are releasing from the plants, it is disturbing the human health. That is, the respiratory problems is occurring because of this plants. So whatever we do, we have to think and we have to move ahead. I feel, that's my opinion. Now coming to the next one, that is the second threat, that is the pollution. Okay, because of the pollution, what is the pollution? It is different. Yeah, the next slide, please. Please share the next slide. Yeah, pollution. It's nothing but it is an interaction of harmful materials into the environment. Because of the pollutants, pollution is occurring. There are n number of pollutions, like we can say that air pollution is there, water pollution is there, soil pollution is there, radioactive pollution is there, noise pollution is there, n number. But I've taken a few here. So what is an air pollution? So because of the transportation, because of the vehicles, the movement of vehicles, because of the movement of the vehicles, they release the smoke, they release the gases, which has sulfur content, which has oxides of nitrogen, which have the carbon monoxide. The n number of gases present in those things, it is causing effect to the climate. Because of that, because of the pollutants present in this, the climate is getting disturbed. The temperature is increasing and the rainfall, it has become less, or sometimes it's more or less. It's not normal because of the increase in the temperatures. Yeah, the air pollution slide, because of the increase in the temperatures, the plants, they cannot survive properly. Either they have to get adapted to the atmosphere or to the temperatures, or they have to die. The species, they are becoming endangered, and then finally the extinction might come. So globalization, urbanization is a must, but not at the cost of the biodiversity or the planet Earth. Now coming to the water pollution, we use water in our day-to-day life. It's a must. Without water, we can't live. For all the activities, water pollution, for all the activities, for our day-to-day life activities, we need water. Not only humans, the plants, they need water. Without water, the plants can't survive. Whether it's more or less, whether it's xerophytes or hydrophytes or the mesophytes, they require water for the life process. And that water should be in a good way. Not the polluted water, not the eutrophicated water. Because of the eutrophication, because of the pollutants present in the water, we can't use that water in our day-to-day life, neither the plants can survive. But some of the plants, like Iconia, they do live. But what we see, what we think is it useful for us? We think of ourselves first. The humankind, the human nature, is it useful to human beings or not? So when the water becomes polluted, the n number of problems will arise. The water bodies, the organisms which are living, the flora and the fauna, the algae which survive in the water, which live in the water, the hydrophytes, which live in the water. The fishes which live in the water, they get disturbed. The food chain, it gets disturbed. And then the degradation starts, and the level of the ponds or the lakes, it starts decreasing, and that may lead to an environmental issues. So coming to the next pollution, that is the soil pollution. Next slide, please. The soil pollution. The soil is very important for the plants to grow. And on the plants surrounding where the flora is flourished, the fauna will be there. Because of the pollution in the soil, the plants can't grow. The plants cannot survive. Because of the high levels of the minerals present in the soil. Look, the batteries which have fallen, the chemicals released from these batteries, it gets mixed up in the soil. And that soil is not suitable for the growth of the plants. It is thus affecting the biodiversity. It is thus affecting the ecosystem, the terrestrial ecosystem, because the flora and fauna are interdependent on each other. Now, coming to the radioactive pollution, because of the nuclear explosions, because of the wars, because of the tests, the radioactive chemicals, which are very dangerous to the human beings, very dangerous to the mankind, but still show the power because of the human greed, to show the power. We are superpowers, but at the cost of the nature. So because of the radioactive pollution, the biodiversity is getting disturbed. And because of it, the temperature is increasing, the climate change is occurring, which is a threat. Now coming to the next slide, that is the overexploitation. Overexploitation. The maximum use of something, the maximum use, we have deforested. Overexploitation slide, please. We have cut down the plants. Because of the plants, the pollution will be reduced. The atmospheric oxygen, the carbon dioxide oxygen levels will be in a normal way. The flora and the fauna will be in a better way. Because of the deforestations, all the things is getting disturbed, and it is a threat to the biodiversity. So this is all because of the globalization and civilization. Yes, we have to go for that. But at the same time, we have to see that the nature is not getting disturbed, or the nature is getting protected. Yeah, coming to the next slide, that is the invasive species, the foreign species. The plants, animals, pathogens, and other organisms that are not native to an ecosystem, and which may cause economic or environmental harm or affect the human health. The plants, animals, fungi, and pathogens flourishing in an ecosystem in which they did not evolve. They can wreak havoc in these ecosystems by preying or competing with the native species. They compete with the native species, spreading the novel diseases. So one example is white pine blister rust. It's a fungal pathogen introduced in North America from Asia in the early 90s, and it has become a threat to the native of white pine. So because of this, the species extinction, the species may become endangered and then become extinct. The genetic diversity may get affected, the ecosystem diversity. There is a loss in species diversity, genetic diversity, ecosystem diversity. Yes, we have to try, we have to develop, we have to go for the new ones. But at the same time, we have to take care, we have to see that the old ones are not getting affected. We have to go, but not at the cost of the old ones. Now coming to the fifth threat, that's a climate change. A change in the average conditions such as temperature and the rainfall in a region for a period of long time. The climate change is changing the ecosystem of this planet, mostly for the worse, combined with population bloom, human encroachment of the forest, and irresponsible waste disposal. It is systematically destroying the biodiversity. Because of the climate change that is reducing the diversity, the species are becoming extinct. Because of the climate change, the habitats, the flora and the fauna, they are getting disturbed. So we have to take care. Once the biodiversity is getting disturbed, the ecosystem is, whether it's a terrestrial ecosystem or the water, the marine ecosystem, or whatever it may be, once the ecosystem, if it gets disturbed, means there is a disturbance in the biodiversity, there is a disturbance in the species diversity, genetic diversity, and naturally ecosystem diversity. Because of the climate change, the temperature is increased. Look in the slide, it shows because of the increase of the temperature, the greenery, where is the greenery? There's no greenery. It has become dried. The soil has become dried. No herbs, no shrubs, and the trees are lost. And no flora, no fauna. It's a completely a deserted area. So rise in temperature, less rainfall, drought conditions, acidic rains, melting of glaciers, extreme weathers, rise in the sea levels, all these are, they are the signs of loss of biodiversity. This is a threat to the biodiversity. It's not that the organizations, the managements, the rules and the regulations, only they can do. But all these organization rules, and it's made by, it's human beings. We have to, each one plant one. And each plant has to take care. So we have to do, not the just rules and regulations, just framing, who will do? We have to do it. We have to take care of that. We have to take the responsibility. The smaller things only will become a big things. So it's my opinion. I'm expressing myself because it's a group of an elite, the elite group of the society. So each one of us, we have to try, we have to strive. Yeah, the rules and regulations, the managements, the organizations are there, but still it's an responsibility of an individual person to take care, to save the nature, to serve the Mother Earth, to serve the humanity. I'm very much thankful to the members of the Council of Green Revolution and the cells, and each and every person who are helped me in technically in showing my slides and all. And thank you one and all for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vijaya ma'am.
Thank you.
for not just talking about the problems, but also the solutions and about each one plant one. We will now move to Dr. Sridevi, whose expertise is mainly in zoology. Ma'am, over to you, ma'am.
So, good evening to one and all. Good evening.
Good evening.
Am I audible?
Good evening, ma'am. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Good evening, Dr. Sai Bhaskar Reddy Garu, Vanaja Madam, Hari sir, and Vijaya Madam, the experts in biodiversity. They have given very good explanations about the biodiversity loss and all, how climate is changing, how the pollution affecting the environment and biodiversity. Thank you all the speakers. Now I am Dr. V. Sridevi, Assistant Professor of Zoology from Government City College, Hyderabad. Today I am going to share my knowledge regarding the biodiversity and climate change. Most of the areas covered by the today's speakers. Now I will brief you something about the health and biodiversity, how they are going to disturbed by our anthropogenic activities. So now first going to brief about the climate change, how the climate is changing day by day and how the biodiversity is getting affected by the human activities. Climate change is due to the human activities.
Madam, are you sharing your presentation?
No, madam, I am not ready with the PPTs actually.
Okay.
So I'm sorry for that.
Kindly switch on your video, at least we can see you.
No problem, madam. Actually, I have carried out the studies in traffic police who are occasionally exposed to vehicular emissions. So how their health is affected by air pollutants. Okay. So how the vehicular emissions get into the environment and how they are affecting the their health. So as we all know that what is environment, how it is getting affected by the human activities. Environment is an integral element of nature, right? The word environment encompasses practically everything. Whatever we see around us at individual level or societal or population levels. So wherever we live, the places we visit, and for that matter, wherever we may exist. Environmental pollution is one of the major problems threatening the present day world. So how the environmental pollution occurring by various ways. Just now, in previous presentation, madam has explained everything about air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution and all. Now I am going to give you brief introduction about air pollution and how it is occurring. Okay. So what are the things which are causing biodiversity loss? So major problem is that globalization, modernized agricultural practices, rapid industrialization, deforestation are cause damage to the environment to such an extent that the loss is almost irreversible. So environmental issues such as ozone depletion, increase in carbon dioxide levels, greenhouse effect, atmospheric warming, etc. are global and are not restricted to natural or state boundaries. So climate change occurs naturally and also by human activities. Most of the time, human activities are causing major damage to the environment or climate change, right? So air pollution is treated under various aspects like natural, urban, and industrial. Urban air pollution is one of the most common and important forms of air pollution. And ambient air pollution resulting from combustion of fossil fuels includes emissions from motor vehicle engines, power plants, industries, etc. The sources of emission in automobiles are exhaust system, fuel tank, carburetor, and crankcase. There are four main polluting emissions from motor vehicles are carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, hydrocarbons, and particulate matter. In the major metropolitan cities, vehicular exhaust accounts for 90% of carbon monoxide, 51% of nitrogen oxides, 33% of hydrocarbons, and 46% of black smoke. So these proportions are still increasing as a result of the increase in the use of motor vehicles. There are also traces of aldehydes, esters, ethers, peroxides, and ketones, which are chemically active and combine to form smog in the presence of light. And evaporation from fuel tank goes on constantly due to volatile nature of petrol, causing emission of hydrocarbons. And ozone is a secondary pollutant which is produced in the atmosphere by photochemically driven reactions involving nitrogen oxides and hydrocarbons. Both people and vehicles are concentrated in urban areas where the emission densities are high. So the ever increasing vehicular traffic density is posing continued threat to the ambient air quality. So how this is happening in urban areas means we are all know that the population growth is increasing day by day in an unlimited way. So the urbanization leads to causing air pollution most of the time. And another air pollution caused by the industries. The industrial pollutants and effluents released into the environment as well as water resources, thereby causing the water organisms like fishes and other zooplankton and phytoplankton will get affected by the industrial pollutants. So ఇంతకుముందు మన వనజ మేడం చెప్పినట్టుగా ఏమంటారు growth is important, but we should not disturb the other organisms and ecological systems. So we should take proper care to maintain the balance between the development and to care our environment. So how to take initiatives by each and every individual means we can do one thing that the Vanija madam says that everybody can plant a tree so that we can balance the environmental pollution at certain level. So these are the things I want to share with you. And and particularly the greenhouse gases. I want to focus on greenhouse gases, how they are released into the environment and how they are affecting the biodiversity and human health, right? So greenhouse gases are released. Greenhouse gases like as we all know that all greenhouse gases are oxides of sulfur, nitrogen, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, methane, CFC and all. These greenhouse gases are very dangerous to our environment and also biodiversity. When they are released into the environment, they in turn they can cause acid rains. So acid rains are not good for the agricultural products or crops. So there are several factors which are affecting environment very seriously. These things should be reduced by our initiatives that can be taken by the government, or every individual is responsible for the reducing the environmental impacts on climate change and also biodiversity. So thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank
Hello.
you, ma'am. Thank you for speaking, Sridevi, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Okay. I think we don't have any questions, sir. and ma'am.
Nikita,
Yes, sir.
I don't have a question, but I thought I'll add to what some of the presentations have given, if we have time.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, basically, I think all the 4 presentations have been very good, and they have given different perspectives on the biodiversity and the climate change. But now currently there is this COP 27, which is underway. Almost 1 week has gone by, and another week is there. Today is a holiday, so from tomorrow again, next week of negotiations will start happening. So, whatever we listen to about biodiversity, threat to the biodiversity, unfortunately, biodiversity as a topic or a negotiation topic, it's not there on the table on the COP agenda, not even now and even before. That's a big problem which has been raised earlier also. Because we are talking of carbon emissions mostly. I think now that has been pointed out that only carbon emissions and the global warming which is arising out of that carbon emissions, and that warming destroying the biodiversity, plants, all the other life, apart from the human life which is now under a threat of extinction. So I think the concern is how to include biodiversity in this COP negotiation, because when we are talking of decarbonization or even stopping deforestation, still I think the aspects which are related to biodiversity is not coming up. In fact, the entire argument of carbon emissions is increasing because of the destruction of natural carbon cycles, and that natural carbon cycle is always enabled by the biodiverse ecosystems, and unfortunately that is not even being referred in the either in solutions or in the problem is how that destruction has happened, and how in the solutions we can bring it back. So, that question which I asked about climate resilient agriculture, that is basically talking about adaptation. But climate smart agriculture is basically, trying to bring another set of solutions which are not necessarily in tune with the biodiversity principles which we are talking about. So I think we need to engage with this process. I think all of us, we need to engage with this process in COP and see how the concerns which we are raising with regard to biodiversity, how this can get included in solution, because one of the concepts which are now used is nature-based solutions. Now, these nature-based solutions appears very benign word for solutions which take nature into consideration, but that's not the case. It's like people want to continue to do emissions, so continue to have vehicles, continue to have the same kind of industrial production, continue to have the same kind of lifestyle, and they want nature to take care of those emissions, carbon emissions. So that's where they're saying, okay, we'll have more forest areas. So, or the other, concept is ocean geoengineering they are talking about. So, oceans which are natural sinks for carbon, but there are limitations in why they are not able to take these emissions which are being released everywhere every day. So we this cycle and the ability of nature to include these disruptions, that is what we call the sustainability, and also the what do you call that, capacity of the nature. There's a particular word, I'm not getting that. So that we have exceeded the carrying capacity, sorry. The carrying capacity of this cycle, where we are continuously adding carbon emissions, I think that has exceeded by maybe many times. So when still people are talking about the using the same cycles to continue to have the same kind of lifestyle, same kind of production. So I think we need to question this nature-based solutions as well, because the research, there is a lot of research going on elsewhere, and that. Sorry, Nikita.
Yes, sir. Please finish. I have a question. I'll add it when you finish.
Okay, you want to ask now?
So there is this UN Convention on Biodiversity, right? Even that is a conference of parties. The 15th one is happening in December of this year. What is the relevance of that with respect to COP27?
Yeah, that's another concern, because that's organized by a different UN body, and this is organized by the different UN body. That is there is a convention on biodiversity, and under that those meetings are happening. But again, there they are looking at more how to enable trade in biodiversity products, and basically weave conservation into the same kind of industrial production processes. So that's there, even in fact now, parallel to this, there is a meeting happening on Ramsar Convention in Wuhan, and simultaneously in Geneva. From Wuhan it is virtual, and in Geneva it is physical. So even the Ramsar Convention, which looks into lakes and the biodiversity, which Dr. Hari was mentioning, I think all those issues are there, but again, it looks like silos of thinking. So there's no linkage, even though yeah, both this and then the biodiversity all are happening under the UN bodies, but each one is looking at it differently and reinventing the wheel. They are still trying to cope up with the definitions, metrics, measurements. So climate change, for me, it is very surprising, because last year and this year, what they have discussed was way back, established in 1995. In fact, in 1992 Rio Earth Summit, they have clearly said loss and damage, which now developing countries in Africa, Asia are facing. And they have asked, okay, now this is what we are facing. We are facing floods, we are facing drought, we are facing, agriculture yield, going down, nutrition cycles are disturbed. So all this is happening, and they said, okay, because this pollution and emissions have started 300 years back, and that was done by a set of countries. So there is this historic responsibility. So there, they said polluter should pay, and that was, that principle was reiterated in 1992 Rio Earth Summit, and later in 1995, when the UNFCCC framework for Convention on Climate Change was established. But now, after so many meetings, 27 meeting is happening. Now they are saying, okay, what is loss and damage? And then the developing countries are resisting to pay because they think it is going to be a permanent liability on them, which has to be, because they have destroyed the Earth's environment multiple times, and every day, every hour that is happening, and they don't want to take the responsibility. But coming back to biodiversity, because we are looking at restoration, somewhere that restoration is still not being looked at in climate change negotiation, and the mechanisms, cost, and the entire institutional structure which is required for that restoration. So it could be habitat restoration, either for plants or for animals or for birds, even insects. Now we are not gone into that also. Insect population has been declining very fast. And in fact, in Germany, they said almost 80% of insects are lost. And even in India, we are seeing what we used to see in 30 years back, 40 years back. We don't see so many insects at all. So once this insect population is gone, the bird population is gone, I think restoring ecosystems is a long-term process. So it's not even 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years. It could be 100 years, 200 years. So this kind of consciousness, I think that has to come. So I think all of us, who are working on biodiversity, and all the multidisciplines involved in biodiversity, we need to engage with this process as well. So I stop here. Thank you.
I quite agree, sir. This is Hari Sarvatam speaking. What happens is they take a lot of decisions in the COP summits, but their implementation is questionable. That is the main problem. See, even if even after about 6 to 7 years, the COP21 summit, that is in the Paris Agreement, none of them has been implemented so far. This is the saddest part of it. So if the decisions taken by the COP every year, at least if 50% of them is every year implemented, I think definitely not only biodiversity, everything will improve. That's what I wanted to say in this forum. I'm not sure how many of you will agree with me, but then this is what comes to my mind in after hearing Dr. Reddy sir. Actually, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Agreed with both of you. And there's also this other situation where we do have funds coming in from Green Climate Fund and National Adaptation Fund in India, but only 10 to 15% of it has been used so far. So even though there is funding coming in from the developed nations to our country, not considering other developing countries, the funds are not being used. There have been only majorly projects in the adaptation fund approved in India, and only 9 projects in the green that are under Green Climate Fund that were approved from India since 2015, when the funds were set up. So I think that's also another issue that we need to look into. If anyone has anything else to add, we can do that, or I'll close the meeting today.
Hello, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Shall we have the contact numbers of today's speakers? Can I have?
Sure, ma'am. I'll share it with you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nikita. Actually, definitely I learned many things from the other speakers. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I have already put up a thank you note in the chat box. So thank you very much to everybody, co-participants, and Dr. Reddy, Dr. Srikanth, Nikita Madam, everybody, and all the co-speakers in this. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, organizers, for the wonderful event. Sessions.
Nikita,
Thank you, sir.
Nikita and Vijaya, thank you each and every one of this organizers of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much.